all the cost of living stuff, we can talk about it till we're blue in the face. You actually will be seeing a real impact, won't you, in just how children are when they come to school, how their parents are, how these individual families are actually coping.
No, significantly so, yeah. So we have a food bank at school. We see the impact of the cost of living in terms of uniform. Only yesterday morning, actually, we were talking to a family who were unable to feed their children. So I've had to try and find food for the weekend for them. So, yeah, I think the cost of living is having a massive impact on many children in my school. My school's in Trafford, so I live in Cheshire, but my school's in Trafford.
And I know that when we adults are caught discussing this, and it must be like that at home over the kitchen table, kids get, they understand, don't they? Or at least they understand a bit of it, and they worry.
Yeah, I suppose so. So I guess I would say that's true of year 5 and 6 children, so upper key stage 2 children. I think younger children, in some cases, sadly, it's all they've known. So younger children come to school and they've properly, not eating well, not eating the right kind of foods, anxieties that parents are facing, and actually sometimes the impact of the anxieties in terms of depression or how the families act and the parents act and those kind of things. So I think that is the knock-on effect on young children in terms of happiness, sadly.
Do you think politicians generally, never mind the rest of us, understand just how bad it is for a lot of these families?
Gosh, absolutely not. And I was listening to the headlines before about hypocrisy. And when you listen to the views that politicians give, and sometimes our absolute leaders and the ridiculous answers they give to solving the crisis in terms of finance, I think the lack of, I'm sorry, there's an opinion coming here which I should possibly avoid. However, the lack of empathy for people who are struggling through decisions they're making is absolutely staggering. And I think some of our leaders, the arrogance that they display in their behaviours and their views, for me, makes the situation worse, for families who are suffering from the crisis and for those of us who are trying to manage this crisis.
And as we were saying, I mean, it's parents and families of those children at your school and others who are actually having to manage it. Is there anything schools can do to help?
Honestly, schools are just trying their hardest. So schools are full of good people who, like so many professions, like health and all these other professions, and people get into schools and social work because they care about children. So teachers, head teachers, everybody, nurses, social workers, really try their hardest, in my experience, to help. Some of the things I'm going to mention that we do, but it's not just specific to our school, it's because that's what I know. So lots of schools do these kind of things. So we have a food bank in our school. Sometimes families are too proud to ask. So we try to identify children who we think may be struggling, and then we highlight those families and we drop off food parcels to try to help those families with uniform. So when children join our school, particularly if they're pupil premium, we try to offer them a full uniform. We keep uniform costs down. So we do. I actually think uniform is important, but we ask for, in our school, for a tie, which is quite cheap, and then a jumper or a cardigan, but everything else can come from one of the local superstores. I guess it's bespoke, isn't it, to the different families? So we try to help in any way that we possibly can to help our families and our community.
But you know what worries me, Darren? And I mean, my mother was a teacher, and I know a lot of teachers. And what worries me is that schools your teachers are becoming social workers. I mean, you're providing full food banks and other levels of support, I have no doubt. A friend of mine who was a head at secondary school was providing deodorant, shampoo, tampons, toothpaste and toothbrushes. I mean, all these sort of things, which are, in effect, coming out of the school budget as well. I mean, this isn't actually what your job is. You should be able to concentrate on teaching these children rather than providing them with the very basics in life.
So I think that all similar professions are in the same state, really. So I know social care are exhausted and they're utilised to their absolute core in terms of stretching how many families that they support. So to answer your question, yes, schools are just so stretched. So I guess the argument is that our core function is to educate children. But I think our core function is actually to care for children in terms of their well-being as well as their education. So it is absolutely the whole package. And I think any decent school wants the best for their children in all terms, certainly in terms of inclusion and education and everything. Having said all of those things, I think schools are stretched so thinly. So they care, obviously, about the children, but they're so stretched so thinly in terms of school leaders and teachers in trying to just fill the gaps, emotional, social, health, finance, all of this kind of stuff. And the cost is magnificent, I think. I think teachers are going home every day absolutely exhausted. I don't know if you're aware, it's SATs next week, and this isn't an anti-SATs thing at all. But there's so much pressure on schools to try and perform after the pandemic in terms of the SATs. But we're not just doing SATs, we're doing all these other things as well. And I love it. I love being in my job. I love the children I'm with. I love the staff that I work with. I'm not complaining. It's an absolute privilege. I'm just mentioning the cost that all of this has that's being pushed onto schools.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.